everybody, welcome back to the shop. I think everybody knows I bought a welder because I had to make a custom section of wrought iron fence for my backyard. But in my life, the only welding I've ever done was oxyacetylene, and that it was just brazing together conduit to make a patio canopy thing. So actually welding was a new experience for me, and figuring out how to do it correctly or nicely. I watched a lot of videos, and I mean a lot of videos on YouTube. Some of them were very good, useful. You pick up a piece from this video and another piece from this. Some of the videos, unfortunately, were very misleading, incorrect information. So what I want to do for this video is I want to try to create something that I wish I would have seen or would have been out there when I was figuring out how to do this flux core welding. So I'll take you over to the machine where I'm just going to sit there and start rambling on about each little piece. Hopefully I can do it, cover everything. Cover every little piece of what I figured out, what counts, what doesn't count, and so on. So I hope this video helps somebody else out who's just starting out, figuring out how to weld flux core. Okay, I want to try to cover details, at least details about flux, focusing primarily on flux core welding, this welder, and details that I went through that I have yet to see in any other video. And yes, there are a lot of videos out there on flux core welding, and there are some about the titanium unlimited 140. Now I think they have the model as 200, but it's the exact same machine, and I think they raised the price on it. But first up, too, if you go watch any of the other videos, if you see somebody that's behind a counter with what they're going to review or talk about on the counter, they have perfect lighting, perfect audio, beware. In my opinion, they're selling it, and they're going to sell you out. I have seen a number of videos, like when I first started with the titanium 125, there's a number of people that say that this is their go-to machine. I returned that machine. I couldn't get it to work. Not to say that I knew what I was doing at that time, so maybe the 125 does work if you're experienced. But okay, first up, I want to talk about the helmet. When I first started, I couldn't see anything. I bought a Yes Welder helmet. It had a smaller screen to it, but I could not see what I was doing to save my life. I did find another video talking about this particular helmet. It's a Yes Welder, and I'll put a link in the description to it, but it's beautiful. I can see everything with this guy. It was fairly pricey. I think it was like $100 for it. There are complaints about how this breaks or that, but what to say? First up, yes, this, I'll put a link, like I said, from Amazon. You can also get the protective piece here of plastic off Amazon, along with the inside plastic. This guy, I don't know, it always seems like it's dirty, and it's always on the other side, so you can't get it clean. It's a pain getting it out. You have to bend it, and it's an even more of a pain putting it back. You have to bend it. The settings on this guy, I have them all full counterclockwise in here for delay and all that stuff. And yeah, it's set up, the switch is set for welding. There are clips, where are they? They're on the side here to release this front piece of plastic. Be careful when you do it, because when you release one clip, this thing wants to flop out straight and fly across your shop. So I think that's all I want to say about the helmet. You can get the parts. It's a great helmet. Oh yeah, it does have shades. Somebody referred to it as darkness. No, it's shades. I always keep it fully clockwise to see. It does come with a nice bag that to protect it, to put it in, and I discovered that when you put the bag on and off, it turns this knob, because one time I was welding and all of a sudden I couldn't see again, realized the knob was not fully clockwise. So be careful when you put it in the bag. My advice would be, anytime you're going to start welding, check the knob first. Make sure you have it on the right shade. Next up, on the subject of being able to see, now that you've got a good helmet, I did a bunch of experiments with a fan. Flux core, yeah, there's a lot of smoke. So first thing you have to do is you need a lot of light. So I would not do any indoor flux core welding unless you had a ton of light on what you're doing to be able to see. I did have success with a small computer box fan, kind of a distance away, slight breeze on the part, and it was blowing the smoke away, so I could see what I was doing as I was welding, and the welds improved. They started getting really straight. Next thing is there's a lot of videos talking about stick out on the gun here. Everybody says a 1/2 inch. My opinion, no. I start with a 1/2 inch, but then after the smoke and everything starts, I back up to 1 inch. And the reason is, that far away, it's giving out a lot of light all of a sudden, so it really lights up where you're welding. If you start with the 1 inch stick out, it just blows off. The whole thing turns red, the whole length, and pow, it just explodes. So, I don't know. You have to practice doing that too. Start. This is about, what is that? Let me get a ruler here. Here's a ruler, because this is about how much I start with poking out. But then, like I said, I'll back up further, and it works fine. I am at 6/10, 600th stick out. It's nice to have a pair of pliers, because when I'm done welding, it's poking way out, so I got to cut it shorter. I've ordered off of Amazon. I've seen it Harbor Freight, all the different specific tools that you buy for doing this, MIG and TIG and all that stuff. And they're all really junky looking to me. This was my dad's, and it's an old Stanley. Works great for cutting the wire off. So it's really convenient to have a pair of pliers on your cart, if you have a cart, or near you for doing the welding and stuff. As far as the settings for me doing flux core, this guy is 2.5 for the feed, and the voltage is 4.5, inductance 7. That is important, but I'll get into that in a minute. As far as the feed, that's a personal choice. For me, I tend to go fairly slow as I do my welding, going across a joint or whatever. So you have to experiment. My opinion is, don't even try welding anything. First thing you do, get a flat piece of metal and just try making straight lines and decent welds or beads or whatever you want to call it. You're going to be playing with the wire feed. Maybe you like going fast. Maybe you like going slower than me. The voltage though, 4.5, I've been able to weld really thick stuff with that setting, really thin stuff, so I don't really mess with that knob. I just kind of played at first with stuff. I've been able to weld like a steel collar that's 50 thousandths thick onto an oxygen sensor for a car, which is like welding 50 thousandths to a spark plug body. That's pretty darn thick, and it comes out beautiful. The inductance, though, there's a lot of videos on it. Go and understand what that is. I'll explain too, because I tried stick welding, but I had the inductance turned up, and I have a feeling that that's why I couldn't stick weld. It just kept sticking to the material because I had inductance. I don't think you're supposed to have any for it to work, so I'll be experimenting with that some point in the future. But I found that a setting of 7 works great for welding, flux core welding. So again, my advice is just get a plate and try to just weld and get used to your movement, get used to what you want for a feed. Typically I would grab something that's probably 12 gauge, piece of 12 gauge plate. You can use probably anything, but it gets hot really fast. And I do run this welder on 110. It's not a 220. And I'm running it on a 15 amp breaker and is yet to trip the breaker. So that's something nobody else talks about. Anything else on here? So that's about it. Yeah, the instructions come with how to hook everything up. For flux core, you want reverse. You want the actual gun to be minus, and then you want the ground clip to be plus. If you're going to do stick welding, you need to flip it. You want the ground clip to be minus, and your clamp thing or whatever that holds the rod to be plus. What else? Feed varies. Inductance is important. That's how the current comes on and goes off or whatever. It's the rise. So go watch a video on that. Now let's talk about, is there anything you can do to this machine to improve the quality of your welds? I've done a lot of different experiments, and the only thing I found is the nozzle. Store-bought nozzles, the copper part, are typically pretty bad. They're sloppy. So I had made my own. I did a video on machining them and drilling them out. It takes a lot of time, but that definitely improved the quality of the weld. I have tighter holes, which holds the wire, I guess conducts better the voltage, current that comes out. The hole itself, though, after a while does build up a lot of carbon in it from welding. So I'll have to run a drill bit through it to try to clean it up a bit. I've actually worn out one. I mean, it etched away copper, the hole got bigger, carbon buildup was worse. So that's the only thing I can talk about that improves it. The other two is wire. I use Blue Demon flux core wire. There's a roll of Vulcan here that I bought from Harbor Freight when I bought this unit, and there is a noticeable difference between the two flux core wires, so I would not recommend, in my opinion, Vulcan wire. Blue Demon, Amazon had it. I'm only buying the 2-pound spools. I'm almost completely done with the first spool, so I may have to order another one soon. That definitely can improve it. There was a video where somebody said the ground clamp was a bunch of junk on this machine. Started doing a lot of research on that, and yes, turns out steel is a very poor conductor. It's way down at the bottom. So you have a nice copper wire to a steel lug to a steel screw to a steel clamp. I did make my own copper contacts in here, but I don't see any difference at all between the off the shelf the way it was and any modification that I did. So I would say the clamp has a problem at all. You can mess with it all you want. Your welds aren't going to get any better. A table, though, makes a big difference if you're actually going to put something together. made my own table. Yeah, like I said, steel's a terrible conductor, but you go and look at all the welding tables, they're all steel, and everybody has the ground clamp on the table, connected to the table, and then your part sitting on the table to weld up. So steel is just fine, I guess, for welding, but I have a steel plate here, and if you can clamp your part really well, it helps a lot. I mean, you got to bolt it down. It has nothing to do with the current or anything like that, the conductions. It just makes the job better. And magnets is all, you can see a bunch of magnets here. I've got one on my table. Magnets and flux core welding don't really go together very well because the berries stick all over the magnet. Then you have a tough time trying to clean the magnet up. So if you can clamp something without magnets, that would be, my opinion, preferable. So this is a little table. I've shown video of it, and I clamp everything down. I can put like a bar across the joint to hold everything flat and square, and it doesn't move. And the other thing too is, I said, a boxer fan helps a slight breeze blow the smoke away so you can see what you're doing. I thought, yeah, somebody said, oh, this is the wrong gauge for it. That's the pressure, and this is the pressure. And no, this is flow right here. If you read it, well, where'd it go? It's something, it said cubic feet per minute or whatever. A lot of videos on, well, I haven't done MIG, so there's a lot of videos on what you should set this thing at as far as airflow. But I bought an adapter so I could hook my air compressor up to it, because I was thinking if a slight breeze clears the smoke, can I just use compressed air or whatever on the nozzle here to clear smoke? Never saw any real difference. I started with barely little air coming out, going to a lot of air, too much air, and then, yeah, the welds got bad. But what nobody tells you is this machine has a valve in it. In other words, if you're using expensive argon CO mixture, when you pull the trigger, the valve opens and then the gas comes out. If you're not pulling the trigger, the valve shuts off and you're not wasting gas. Nobody tells you that. That's a great thing, a great feature for this machine. So, what else did I say on quality? No, that's all for quality. There's nothing else I've done or experimented with that I could say improved the way my welds looked, how much they penetrated, blah, blah, blah. Some of the accessories that you do want gel. This turned out to be the best for me, Fortney. I'll smear a slight film on my table so berries won't stick to it. I'll cover the plastic nozzle here and the entire copper nozzle piece. Nothing is ever stuck to it. It cleans up beautifully, so I like that. What else? Oh, yeah. Somebody said, because this set comes with a holder for stick welding, and that holder nobody really talks about is called a stinger. I don't know where they came up with that term. Somebody recommended the Harbor Freight burger or whatever, stinger. Don't do it. The clamp on this thing is incredible. The spring is really hard to push. This thing weighs a ton, and you're probably going to be trying to hold the welding rod like down at the tip so you can strike it and get the arc to go. With this heavy thing on the other end, you're not going to be able to do that. It's going to bend the rod and break all the flux off the rod. So I would not. I'm going to be returning this to Harbor Freight. It wasn't that expensive. I think it was $14, $15, but that's going back. I think that probably concludes everything I want to say. I've got a set of these magnets. They are incredibly strong. They're hard to work with because you're trying to move things to line it up, and they hang on so hard that you just cannot. I can probably lift a plate. Yeah, I can lift up a steel plate with these things. The other ones too, Harbor Freight, I bought one set and it turned out they're not 90 degrees. It was off by like 3 or 4 degrees. So I returned that set and I bought another set. Came out perfect, and then I bought a third set, I guess, and it's perfect. So if you buy the Harbor Freight, you know, these little bitty red magnets, check them out, each one of them. Because if you're counting on it to be at a 90 and it's not, you whatever you're welding is going to be crooked. Anybody else? Wire brush, yeah. I have a wire brush in my drill press that I use. I have this guy here. A lot of people have the hammers and the handheld brush. I never use this guy. So if you want to buy it, go for it. But the other thing on this magnet too is there's an Allen spot to tighten it up. It just does not really stay. You can move it. Even though you tighten it as hard as you can, it still can go out of adjustment. So if you got it set for a specific angle, it may not be that angle in a few minutes. Gloves too, Harbor Freight has, they don't have medium, they have large and extra large. I guess the mediums, the first pair I tried on were large and they were way too tight. So I bought the extra large where the fingers are just 10 miles long. My wife had to sew them shorter. Next trip I tried on the large and they fit perfect. So it was just a fluke pair that I put on. I've got another pair down there. Vulcans, they seem to be really nice, but yeah, you can tell after you use it for a while, it looks bad, just looks bad, but you can't feel anything, and they're pretty good. They're definitely perfect for protecting me from welding, splatters, and they're pretty good at protecting me from heat. So you can pick up something after it's welded in a few seconds. You'll be putting it down because, oh man, it's hot. But okay, so bottom line, would I recommend this machine? Oh yeah, it's pricey, but it's supposed to do everything, and eventually I'm going to try MIG welding. But the gas tank, everything's going to run like $300. So I just don't want to do that yet. Flux core does a beautiful job. Stick, I still have to learn how to do it. I think it's me, and I think it's the inductance setting. I always had it set up for inductance when you shoot. Because when you look at the big machines, they're just a transformer. There's no inductance control. There is no delay in the voltage and current going up. So next time I try doing stick welding, I'm going to take it to 0 and see if I can successfully strike an arc. Any last things to cover? No. So that's kind of it for the beginner. Leave the clamp alone if you can make your own nozzles, otherwise you have to deal with what the store puts out. You know what my settings are, and I've been doing a lot of welding with it, and it's just beautiful. You know what helmet to buy. The Flux nozzle gel is great, and you know the pitfalls to magnets and stuff too. The last thing I want to talk about, or sensitize people to, come on, the wheels are stuck, is if you're going to do stick welding, there is a chart on the top of the machine that tells you the size, diameter, or whatever of the rods that you're using. I had, not knowing any better, accidentally bought one set of rods on the back there that is too big. The machine won't do it. Again, I don't know whether it can or not, but because I haven't been able to stick weld yet. But then these rods it can take. So be aware that there is supposedly, allegedly, a limit to the size of stick rods that you can use. The other thing is, be aware, there's other videos, go watch them so that you can figure out what all these E6013 and stuff means. It's part of it is how, what did, oh well, some note, Alexa, about what kind of steel it is, how strong it is, whether you can weld vertical, horizontal, only down, or whatever. The same way I talked about the wire that I use, the Blue Demon. I found a difference in the quality and how it works. There's the same kind of numbering stuff on the wire itself, you know, E711. So I'm only doing 30 thousandths wire. I haven't done 35, but you need to learn and watch other videos so that you know exactly what the stick or the wire is that you're buying and what it's capable of doing. So that's probably it. So I hope this video helps somebody out and sensitizes you to a bunch of different things. I was sitting back looking at the welder and thinking about the video and realized there's a few more items that I think are important to talk about here. This is a DC only welder using inverter technology. And I stated that I was on a 110 volt, 15 amp breaker. I have, saying that I've never tripped the breaker in my experiments, stick welding, and I'll repeat that for a special person. In my experiments, stick welding, I have turned the voltage knob, the middle knob, full clockwise. I've had the rod stick long enough where the entire rod was glowing red hot before I could get it unstuck, and the breaker never tripped. So that's probably pushing this to the limit. The other thing is there is a safety sticker on top. Read the sticker, read every safety thing there is in the manual that comes with it. They talk about things and rays and stuff that can permanently damage your eyesight. So, also, there is a video that says, do not run this unit on a generator, you'll damage the inverter. I've never seen anybody running it on one. I saw one video of a guy out in a field, and I know he was running it on a generator. Wasn't this model. I don't know what welder he had. So that's just a heads up. You'll damage it if you run it on a generator. Another video says don't run this machine on an extension cord. You'll damage the inverter. Well, the power cord on this unit is ridiculously long. And you've seen my bench here. There's an extension cord or a plug right there on the wall that the extension cord is plugged into, and it's a very heavy extension cord. It's mainly for my air conditioner, but I plug this unit into it. Every garage has to have a GFI, ground fault indicator, on every outlet in the garage for safety. Now, the GFI for this outlet over here is way across the house in the laundry room. So a 16 gauge wire goes from here across the house to the laundry room, and another 16 gauge comes all the way back to feed this outlet. To me, that's a very long extension cord, and I haven't seen any problems with this welder and running it to the max. Like I mentioned, there is a chart on the top for stick welding. This is why I've got to tell you or advise you to learn what the E60s and EF70s and all this sort of junk is, so that you don't accidentally buy something, a wire or a rod, that you can't use. They give you all the settings here for different thickness metal and so on. Point is, who knows who came up with this chart for Harbor Freight, for whoever manufactured this thing. Maybe that guy likes it really hot for heavy penetration. Maybe he likes it light. Only as a reference. You still have to do your own experiments. There is also the chart inside. I've got my cheat sheet here of what I like for flux core. I haven't done MIG or TIG, but they give you all the settings here too, and it's just for reference. Again, who knows who came up with this chart. The other thing to pay attention to is on the wire rods, there's a nice chart. Where's the chart? Oh, here it is. And who knows better what settings to use for these rods than the manufacturer. But they tell you for the different size rods, the 16, 30 seconds, whatever, what your setting should be. So pay attention to all the charts. Again, just do your own experimenting. The last thing that nobody ever talks about is these connectors. These, yeah, you just untwist it. It's a weird looking thing. There's a video saying these are not good. They can't handle that much current. This isn't a 400 amp welder. These are plenty good for this. You simply insert it, turn it until it stops turning. That's all. The connector here for the motor wire feed, it's keyed. You can only put it in one way and tighten it. You have to force it all the way in before you start tightening it. It's tough. This was even tougher. Nobody talks about this, and I pushed it in there, but I could still see metal down in here, and I thought that was all it went in. Saw somebody's video. No, you got to push like heck all the way in. You don't want to see anything. And then I think there was something that tightened up in here. Yeah, I think there's a wing nut here or something that you tighten up to lock it in place. So, but I was welding with it kind of poked out. Another video, somebody was saying they were thrilled because all this is metal. And okay, yeah, the 125 that I had, it was plastic. But okay, whatever, you know, I guess they're experienced. It does come with all the fittings for the larger spools and so on. I just keep it all stored in here for whatever reason. Boy, look at all this junk. I'm getting lots of like splatter all over the place. The top of the machine I had to clean off. It's all in here. I got to blow it out with air. Anything in here? No, it's clean. So yeah, you can see the washers, and there's a spring in there. They don't really show you in the manual how to do it. You just put this on there, washer, spring, washer, tighten that down. Tension I never really messed with. There's videos about that. If you have it too tight, it causes a problem. There's also videos saying be very careful with this. Don't step on it. Don't drive your car over it. Yeah, no nonsense. So that's just the last of the items that I wanted to cover that nobody talks about.